But I woke up that night just vexed and just like pissed, really. And I was like, what happened today that I missed? Like, who was I supposed to be mad at? Like, who did me dirty today that I didn't catch it? And I couldn't figure it out. And then eventually I fell back asleep. But then when I woke up at about 8, as soon as I woke up, it dawned on me. And again, it was just one of these conversations with God. And he was like, you've known what you wanted to do for years. And I was like, yeah, I want to be the executive director of a theater, founder and executive director of a theater. He said, so why, when I keep sending this man to ask you this question, why do you keep acting like you don't know what he's talking about? I felt like was almost God speaking to me like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this? And I called that guy back and I said, oh my God, can we have that conversation? And he said, yeah. So we had the conversation and he said, write it all down. And I wrote it all down. I wrote down the theater, the programs, the people, the timeline, the all of it. I wrote it all down, and I gave it to him, and he took it to whoever he was working with, and they were silent for about 2 or 3 months, and about 3 months later, he came to me the Tuesday before I got married. He called me, and he said, the council has decided to award you $1 million grant to start that idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Are you ready? Are you ready?
On this episode, we sit down with Michelle Lang-Raymond, a creative powerhouse who's redefining what theater can be in the Pacific Northwest. As founder of Acts on Stage, she's built a home where artists of color and people of faith can bring their full, authentic selves to the spotlight. Michelle's story is one of defying timing and bold vision. When told you don't fit here, she created her own space. When the pandemic threatened her theater's launch, she transformed challenge into opportunity. With 25 plus years in merging ministry, education, and artistry, Michelle brings wisdom on building community, nurturing young talent, and creating spaces where no one has to choose between their faith and their creative expression. This is truly a conversation that will inspire you to support the visionaries in your own community. This is the UpNUp Podcast. Enjoy the show. Yes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're tuned into the UpNUp Podcast on the UpNUp Network. I'm your host, Rebel.
And I'm DJ Earn, man.
What's up, boss?
How you doing, man?
What's my answer? You know my answer.
Grateful.
Yep.
Blessed.
What else? There you go.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm blessed. I'm grateful. Shout out to everybody in the room, right? You always got to acknowledge people in the room.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
I could tell when they feel some type of way if you don't acknowledge them. You know what I mean? So shout out to everybody in the room. But again, if this is your first time tuning in, welcome to this show. As I stated, this is the UpNUp Podcast. This is the podcast where we're focused on cultivating culture, right? We do that by providing amazing stories of individuals, groups, movements, right? The hustlers, the shakers, people who are breaking down barriers, kicking down doors, kicking them off the hinges, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? And not just for all of us here, but obviously for the next generation. And again, we always want to make sure we're shouting out the consistent supporters, the viewers, the listeners. What do we call them up here? Family, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to the family, man. We
Shout out to
appreciate
the
y'all.
fam.
We appreciate y'all. You know, it's interesting. Every time we come in to do an episode, feels like the first one.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not even
Every
gonna lie.
time.
I'm not just saying that to say that, but I do feel like everybody's story is different.
Mm-hmm.
I can't compare any episode we've done to anybody else's,
Yeah.
right? And today's no different. Today's guest is someone who I would say is definitely a beacon of light. Someone who also is creating environments for people to grow and expand their creativity. She's definitely a true culture cultivator who's keeping everything she's doing on the up and up, right? She currently serves as the CEO and executive director for Acts on Stage, which is a theater company dedicated to centering the voices, the works, the initiatives of people of color and people of faith. And overall, a community builder, a leader, and someone who's setting stages for the next generation, right?
Hey.
I feel like it's long overdue, but it's right on time.
Yes, sir.
That we have her here with us. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Michelle Lang-Raymond. Can we get a round of applause?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm blessed as well.
Yes.
Grateful as well.
Yes.
Very happy to be here. Super excited to be here.
Yes. No, we're happy to have you.
Yeah, happy to have you. Thank you.
How are you feeling? How's the day treating you?
Well, we just closed the show at Acts on Stage, 2 days ago? And so I woke up today. I went to bed last night with all these ideas about what I was gonna, get to the office and start working on today.
Mm-hmm.
And when I woke up, I was like, nah, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. Like when people don't know, like when you do a show, and I know we'll get into what we do, but when you do a show, it's not just the days that you have a show. Like you are like all in for weeks,
Mm-hmm.
if not months. And so by the time the show closes, you've done a series of 12-hour days. You've probably done about a month of 12-hour days.
Mm.
And so when I woke up today, I was just like, I'm not done with whatever recovery there might be. I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
So I kind of took today, and my husband cleaned up our place.
Yeah.
Really nice. And so when I walked out into the open area, it was just all nice and tidy. And I was like, I'm gonna just stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna stay here until it's time for me to leave.
Yeah.
That's what I did today. So I'm feeling good.
That's good.
Yeah,
I
this
love
is
that.
literally my first thing today.
Come on. Come on.
So that feels good.
We won't put
Which
too
is
much.
definitely not my norm.
We won't put too much stress on you. Don't worry. This is gonna be relaxing. Now we always start every episode with the quote of the day.
Yeah.
Something to get the vibe right, get the convo started. Brother man,
Yes,
he's the
sir.
man of
Yes,
the quotes
sir.
here. So
All right.
what you got for us?
The quote of the day today is, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have."
Mm.
That's good. Who said that?
Maya Angelou.
Yes, she did. I was
Yeah.
gonna say I've heard that before.
Mm.
It also sounds like something Fred Hammond said, who's a gospel singer,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just written so many songs for decades. And I remember one time in an interview, somebody asked him, "Are you ever afraid that you're not, are you ever afraid that you gave your best song away?"
Mm-hmm.
Because he was writing for other people as well.
Mm.
And they asked him, "Are you ever afraid that you gave your best song away?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "Where I got it from is endless.
Yeah.
Where I got it from is limitless. Where I got it from is boundless.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And if it's for me, it's for me. And I'm just as happy to hear somebody else sing it as I would be if it was mine." So yeah, I agree. I agree
Yeah.
with that. Like where we get this energy from
Yep.
is boundless.
Yeah.
Mm.
And when we start acting like it has a limit, then that's what makes it have a limit.
Exactly.
Mm.
That is what makes it have
Yeah.
a limit. But it actually is limitless.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
That's
I think
how I
we all
seen it.
deal with that too
Mm-hmm.
as creatives.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like kind of wanting to possess our creations too much and not allowing them to be free.
Yeah, I feel like when you are like a real, when it's authentic, right? I feel like there's less fear
Mm.
that there will be more.
Mm-hmm.
But when you sort of use art and your creativity as just something to monetize, then I do think there is a fear of it, because you do feel like there's only so many ways you can make money at it.
Yep.
Mhm.
But if it actually is just something that exudes from you,
Mm-hmm.
then that's like less of a concern,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, can I make money off of my creativity? Sure, I can, but I'm not creative because it makes
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
I'm a creative. I'm an artist because that is just how I'm wired. That's
Yeah.
just who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, you find ways to make money at it.
Mhm.
But you're not. But if it's really authentically who you are, the fear isn't that it's gonna run out.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. It's an expression.
Exactly.
Now you got to express yourself.
It
We're
is.
always gonna want to express ourselves. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why it's never gonna run out.
That's
you know?
real.
Yeah.
Good quote, man.
Yeah.
Good quote.
That's a good one.
Like
Thank
that
you.
one.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
They never let me tell quotes up here, so
What?
yeah,
I
don't
got
know.
you,
It's
bro. One day I got
It's just
you.
a weird thing. Maybe one day. So obviously our platform is built on allowing people to come and like tell their stories the way they want to tell them and speak to your journey. But before we get into your journey, I always love to ask guests this question. When it comes to seasons, we all go through different seasons. Like, how would you describe the current season you're in right now?
Yeah. Man, I'm in a building season.
Mhm.
I've created a lot of things. And some of the things I feel like I've sort of produced or created didn't need to be like built. They just needed to be showcased or platformed. Like
Mhm.
I have this idea, I have this vision, and we're just gonna do it. It doesn't necessarily need to have longevity woven into it, right? It doesn't necessarily need to have sustainability woven into
It's
it.
for the moment.
It's for the moment, you know. And when this moment is over, some of the things I've created previously, I felt like that. I was like, I think I'm gonna do it as long as it feels like it needs to be happening. But if at some point it doesn't need to happen anymore, I'm okay to like release it.
Gotcha.
But acts on stage is sort of maybe the first thing, maybe the second thing, outside of my marriage that feels like it needs to be built with intention and with longevity at the core. And so we're moving really fast and really furious, but I'm very aware that we are, as much as we have done and as much as we are doing, we are still absolutely in the building.
Gotcha.
We're just building.
Yeah.
You know, we're still in the scaffold phase. Don't get me pretending like I know construction.
Trust me, I don't know what that means.
But I do know what a scaffold is.
Yeah.
And I do know that the scaffold ain't the building. So we're still like just in the frame.
Got you.
Still in the frame phase. And so I feel like I'm in a season of building and learning a lot. The cool thing, you introduced me by a title. And the cool thing is I have this title that has a lot of that has a lot woven into it. CEO, executive director. Truth of the matter is I named myself. I titled myself.
Yeah.
You know. But I can walk into a room though, and I am the executive director of Acts on Stage. So I do get to say that, but I also know that just because I say it doesn't mean I know everything that goes with that title yet.
Yeah.
And so in this building phase, I'm in a significant learning phase. So I literally was at a leadership conference with Murdoch Trust a couple of weeks ago for executive directors all around the country. And so you're sitting at this table with people who literally, like, you know, they hold degrees in this stuff. And I'm sitting there listening to them like, how you do that?
Yeah.
You know, where you get that from? Where'd you learn that? And, you know, I have to explain to them, you know, don't let the title fool you. I'm very much learning how to do this.
I love that.
And so as much as we are building an organization, I'm being built as a person. I'm being built in a different kind of way.
That's real.
Wow. Nice. Yes.
That's well said.
Yeah, for real. So we do want to take it back to like your early life, growing up in Mississippi and stuff. Like, what was that like for you? What was that experience like?
We do our job, you know.
Okay.
We gotta know some things.
Yeah. Mississippi, like, okay. I don't know if this is how it was from where y'all are from, but in Mississippi when I was growing up, the cousins getting together in the backyard or whatever, and just putting on a talent show. Okay. Just cause that's like Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's like just because. And so that was kind of my upbringing. My upbringing was I grew up literally on the same street as my 10 cousins, about 3 houses down. And so if you weren't at one house, you were at the other. And, you know, that's people assumed that. The church that we went to was on the corner of that same street. The older ladies who would babysit any kids on the block, you know, they were all throughout the same street. And so I just grew up with a real sense of community from the jump.
Yeah.
And so I think that is woven into so much of who I am. Like, I started a music group years ago, and many times people would say, you know, you could just do it by yourself. And I was like, that's just really not how I'm put together. I'm just really knitted for community. I'm just really knitted to do whatever we're gonna do. I'm just knitted by my Southern roots.
Yeah.
And specifically being raised on the same street as my family, and again having our church at the end of the block. I just feel like that's just sort of woven into like all the ways I've expressed myself throughout my years.
Yeah. That's real.
So so Mississippi, as long as I've been in Seattle, I've been in Seattle a long time, but I still feel like my heart is colored, you know, by the South.
Yeah.
I feel like the way I see people, the way I see life, the way I see gathering is Southern. And so that goes with me. Yeah,
That's
my dad
real.
was a musician. My mom was a smart little, she actually, man, let me get this right. I feel like my mom got pregnant really early. And so she actually ended up dropping out of school, I want to say in the 9th grade, because she had me and my brother. And these two women saw her volunteering in the local library. And they just thought she was the smartest little black girl they'd ever seen. They were two white women. And they somehow got her a full ride scholarship to Vassar College in New York. And so at 14 or 15 years old, my mom had 2 kids. So we were raised by my grandmother, but my mom went up to Vassar College in New York. And she was so smart. She finished college. She finished Vassar College in 2 years.
Damn.
Wow.
2 years. And then she came back and got us. And she joined the military. She went to the military as an officer. And then we started traveling. So she took these little 2 brown kids from Mississippi and started traveling the country and the world. And that's sort of how life and the world kind of got opened up to us. So again, I think my heart, my energy is Southern, but my mom just got us out of there real fast.
Yeah,
I don't want to say got us out of there like it was jail.
It
wasn't like I don't mean it like that. She experienced more of the world, and at the time, you know, a lot of people in the South got stuck in the South, and she didn't want that, and she wanted us to go see the world.
Yeah, I love how you describe kind of the tight-knit community aspect, because I think we talk about it all the time. Like I think it's the things that you experience when you're a child in your early years that definitely play a role as you get older, you know, and what you're currently doing. But as you were like growing up and getting older, like was there like a path that you kind of already saw for yourself? Like was there something that you latched onto that you felt like was kind of like your anchor in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes you get to where you are, like you get to like where I am right now, and you sort of reflect on all the obvious ways you got there. But I do feel like I saw it in forward. I didn't see it. Like I could sit here now and see it in reverse.
Yeah.
But I honestly think I saw it from the beginning. So we moved to New Jersey, and my mom would drive us up to New York to go see theater, go see shows in New York. She just wanted us. I don't know why. She was just a different kind of girl. And she would drive us up to New York, and I remember I saw The Wiz with Stephanie Mills. I saw the first Wiz. I saw the Jackson 5 in New York. I saw, I don't know if you know who Miriam Makeba is, queen from, I want to say she's from South Africa, and she was, you know, just the big, you know, as big as Marley. She's just a big deal. And then I saw Sweet Honey and the Rock, I want to say, on Broadway. And there was, I think, Earth, Wind, and Fire. And so, not dating myself, but, you know. But I remember being in those spaces as a kid and just watching how the arts moved rooms, like transfixed people and created community, like even larger community. And I just remember being, as a kid, just like, I was more enamored with what was going on in the room than I was with the artistry on the stage. Like I loved what was happening on the stage, but I was really like transfixed with what was happening around the room.
Like the impact and the
really
effect that it was having on people.
Yeah, I really was. Like I watched that, and I was weird now that I think about it. Like I watched the concessions. I watched how they did concessions. I watched how they did the stuff on the walls. Like I was just really into all of like the whole these moments that moved crowds of people.
Yeah.
And so this my upbringing, which is sort of full of those kinds of moments. And so when I think about what I'm doing now, I for sure see the seeds.
Yeah.
You know, and when I first when I was here in Seattle, fast forward lots of years, I went to UW and was failing miserably. I went to UW for the first 2 years. My high school counselor got me enrolled into UW, and I was doing terribly. So I finished that. I quit UW and went down to Seattle Central. Like, let me go to a smaller place, you know, where somebody can help me figure this out. So I went to Seattle Central, and I finally was doing well, getting great grades, connecting with what academics were. You know, just I finally understanding it, because I was really like out here by myself. And but it was like in my last quarter before I got my associates that I felt like I heard what was the voice of God to me saying that I needed to drop out of school in that moment because there were gifts and talents in me that needed to be utilized right now. And I struggled with it. I wish I could sit here and tell. I don't know if I wish I could. It would be nice to sit here and tell you I fully was obedient to that moment.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was like, no, that don't make no sense. I was like, I finally know how to do school. I finally know what I'm doing. I finally get it. And and so I kind of made a deal, really with God, and was like, okay, I'll quit school if you give me a job that is either so in touch with my purpose that is undeniable, or that makes me so much money. Said the girl with no degree, but made so much money that I could just fund my own purpose on the side.
Got you.
And I knew my purpose was to work with kids or to be in the performing arts. That I knew. And so I quit school after that quarter, and I just went on job interviews at radio stations, theaters, or places that work with kids. And I got this job at this really small community ministry called Emerald City Outreach Ministry, right down on Rainier, kind of going towards Rainier Beach. And it was small. Like, of all the places that I went to interview, it was the least of them. It was like the smallest.
It's like the last probably option.
It was I mean, it was like of all, and I had callbacks at all these places.
Yeah.
And I had a callback at Cairo TV, I want to say, at this other big place that worked with youth, and then this small place on Rainier. And I just felt like I should go to the small place, and that's where I went. And when I started there, I got hired actually as like the receptionist. That wasn't the job I wanted, but that's the only job they had. So I took the job just because I felt like I was supposed to be at this little place. And as soon as I took that job, the person who worked with the youth quit. And so they said, "Don't you want to work with youth?" And I got that role.
Wow.
And that really was like the beginning. So my job at the time with them was I don't remember the title, but basically work with the kids and basically teach the kids the Bible.
Got you.
And I was like, well, I don't want to just do it I don't want to do it like regular. I was like, what am I good at? What do I love? What flows from me naturally? And I knew like theater and the arts was.
Yeah. And
so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have kids read scripture, and we're gonna take those scriptures, we're gonna rewrite them, and we're gonna do plays.
Wow.
And our first play was the story of the prodigal son. I think I had like maybe 15 kids in this little group, and we did a play. We staged it at Sharpless Elementary School at the time, and 700 people showed up.
Wow.
To our very and this is pre-internet.
That's a lot of people,
right?
I don't care what year.
Okay, this is when we were like
700.
passing out
700 people is a lot of
cards.
people, yo.
Yeah, and so like 700 people showed up, and we're blown away by it, and that was kind of like the beginning of the direct path.
Yeah.
Of what you.
What I love is you were able to find like the intersect between kind of like what you naturally want to do, and then also like how you can merge it.
Yeah.
With something that may not have thought it could be merged.
Well, and the other thing that was the merger was when I was so I wasn't immediately gonna like rewrite scripture. I was like, let's just go find stuff that kids could perform. But when I went to look, like I would literally sit for hours in Barnes and Nobles and Borders books, right? I would sit there and I could not find scripts that my black kids in Seattle could do that either were culturally relevant or not just corny, right? Because at the time, a lot of the religious sort of content, it was just really corny. It was just really corny, and I was like, I'm not taking that to my kids.
Yeah,
and so I had to write it, and so I had to like literally write it.
Yeah,
and that was really the beginning of my work, and then in the midst of that, I forget what year it was, but in the midst of that, Act Theater downtown Seattle was debuting Ruby Dee's one-woman show.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
Ruby D. No.
Ruby D. If you see any Spike Lee movie,
okay,
and there's an old couple in it.
Ossie she didn't do the right thing. Do the right thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
I know what you're talking about.
Her. So she legend, and she was doing her debut of her one-woman show here in Seattle. She was 70 years old, and she had it in her rider that her stage manager had to be a young Black woman from the city. And so my mentor at the time was at Seattle Central. She called me and said, "You want to do this gig at ACT?" And I was like, "I don't know how to do that." She's like, "You'll figure it out."
Yeah.
And I went and did it. And Miss D came and worked with my kids, which she was not on contract to do it all.
Yeah.
She said she was going to come talk to my kids for like 30 minutes. She ended up being there for 4 hours, giving them like direct tutoring about how you do auditions, how you do monologues, how you do scene work, the whole nine. And when we finished that, she said, "You need to go to school. But she said, instead of you going to school, I'm going to get you a job." And she got me a job in D.C. at the arena stage in D.C. So I went there for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And studied. And then I came back and kept going.
Won't you do it? That's
Pull that
see
off.
that, but
Man.
that's
Pull that off.
literally
Yeah.
understanding. I don't know what's ahead,
Yeah.
but I gotta answer the call. That's real.
Yeah.
So staying on this topic, because I love this, because doing some research on you, there was a quote you had said that was super powerful. I would love you to elaborate on it. And you said it was with an interview with SPU, and you said, "I don't understand why my faith can't exist with my persona as an artist. I don't understand why those two things can't exist at the same time." And you said sometimes the church is forcing people to sort of live two lanes. Like at that time, did you feel like it was kind of new for you to do that in a way? And also, did you feel like that kind of gave you some leverage and like, nobody's doing this, let me be kind of the first, or try to help usher that in?
Yeah. Wow. So when I moved to DC, I was studied at this theater, and the production team that I was a part of was really had a variety, just a wide diversity of people, and I was a Christian, and it was very clear to me that there was a limit. There was like a limit of how Christian I was allowed to be in this theater space. Right? Even though the merger in my heart and my mind between what people do in traditional ministry or in ministry period and what people do in the performing arts they're so much alike. Like both entities, let's call them, are dissecting the human experience.
Yep.
Right? People who are doing ministry, especially genuine ministry, and people who are doing art, especially, not especially, any kind of art, what they're trying to do is study, examine, and like dissect and translate the human experience and turn it into something that is helpful. Right?
That's real.
For real. Like you just came to see a show. Like you come see a show, you come to see a show in theater to see something that looks familiar and that helps you process life, helps you process yourself, helps you process the people you like, the people you don't like, helps you. Even comedy is trying to help you process.
Yeah.
And at its core, that's what faith is, and that's definitely what ministry is supposed to be. It is an examination of the human experience, and hopefully an honest evaluation and remedy, right?
That's real.
And when I was at this theater in DC, I could do the examination of the human experience, and I could translate it artistically. But if I said, "Man, this feels like when I'm at church," then I would be looked at like, "No, this is not that." Like, feels like it to me. You know what I'm saying? I was like, "It feels like it to me."
Yeah.
And then when I'd be at church, and the same thing, I was like, "Man, this feels like when I'm doing scene work."
Yeah.
Well, this ain't that. Don't compare Jesus or don't compare your faith to, that shallow, arts industry.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm really sure church is an artistic expression. I'm pretty sure. I was like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when I come here, this is the same thing. And so they couldn't coexist together. And I just didn't understand at the time. I understand it now.
Yeah.
I'm older, and I understand why people feel like they need to protect certain territories. Church people, religious people, let me say, feel like they need to protect what they think is sacred. Theater people, artist people feel like they need to protect what's sacred about theirs. So I understand why.
Yeah.
I just don't agree. Yeah, I just don't agree. I think both of those spaces are actually sacred spaces.
Yeah.
One of the values that drives the work we do at Acts on Stage is that we believe the arts are divine.
Mm.
I don't look at the arts as um just this throwaway fluffy stuff. Even what y'all are doing here, like
Yeah.
this is not um this is not less than
Yeah.
real news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not less than the economy. This is
Yeah.
not less than whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's real.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this has real merit.
Mhm.
But people, when they want to feel important, then something has to feel unimportant,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um,
That's real.
Yeah.
and that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. And so I just feel like the thread of my life has been to like be a bridge, a multifaceted, multi-layered bridge.
Yeah. And it's like
Yeah.
you kind of like you're just redefining what already exists in a way. You know what I mean? Like even like you mentioned kind of like media. It's like regardless of how you do it, are you getting a story out? Right? The vehicle you use can be different. It could all look different. But at the essence, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to get to the same place.
We are.
We're trying to connect the story to
We're
the
trying to
audience.
make it make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to unpack it.
Yeah.
We are.
And I think
Mhm.
what I love about what you're talking about is it can encourage someone who's listening or watching to like figure out what's my most natural approach
Mhm.
that makes me feel like me, that makes me not feel like I'm conforming
Mhm.
to kind of reach the same place we're all trying to reach. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's real.
Yeah. Definitely. Now, I know we've been mentioning it, but I want to get into Acts on Stage.
Yeah.
Like, what sparked the idea for Acts on Stage?
Man. So I have this this screenshot that I took years ago when I went to work at a university down in Portland. It happened twice. One, somebody was doing one of those Facebook polls, like where you just got to answer all these questions.
Yeah.
And one of the questions was, "What's your dream job?" And I put on there, founder and executive director of a performing arts theater, blah blah blah. And then when I went and took this job at a university in Portland, my boss at the time asked the same question, and I gave the same answer. And so, fast forward, I was doing all this work. I had done all the work that I'd been doing for years that always had some measure of the performing arts in it, right?
Mhm.
Theater and the performing arts.
Yeah.
And in 2013, right? Yeah. In 2013, I woke up one morning and heard the news that there wouldn't be an indictment in the Mike Brown case
Mm.
out of Ferguson.
Yeah.
Right. And I had been following that case, but I was a Black woman living in Portland, one of the whitest cities in
Yep.
America.
Yep.
So I've been following the case, but I was also navigating being a Black woman in a predominantly white space, right? So as much as I was following it, I was also busy being,
Yeah.
right? But I woke up one morning and I saw this news about there wouldn't be an indictment in the Mike Brown case, and I just remember thinking that this was going to be hard
Yeah.
for us.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said the us, I meant like the country. I was like, this is unique. This is going to be uniquely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the school that day. I want to say it was a Tuesday because we were doing chapel, and I'm in charge of chapel. And it was a Tuesday, like right before we went on Christmas break. And I forgot what your question was.
No,
What's your
I was just saying, like, pretty much the build up to Acts on Stage.
Okay, cool,
What
great.
sparked it?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's right. I'm there. I'm there. So I woke up that morning, saw the news, went to school. It was a Tuesday, and I remember thinking, this is weird because I'm a Black woman in this predominantly white space, and it's the chapel like right before Christmas, and so there was like this really weird kind of matrix feeling,
Mhm.
like this don't feel right. Like
Yeah.
this doesn't feel right that something that is happening so prevalently in my cultural community, my racial community, does not seem to matter in this space at all.
Yeah. So that's a
Um,
bad feeling.
It was a
Yeah,
weird feeling.
yeah.
It was like we're literally singing Christmas songs, and I'm pretty sure there's a revolution happening
Yeah.
or about to happen,
Yeah.
right? And so long story short, I just my prayer to God was like, God, you got to help these people, God, because I started seeing people have terrible conversations, especially white people that I liked, that I loved, that I thought had the same kind of faith as me, and I was like, they're terrible
Yeah.
at this conversation,
Yeah.
and I was like, God, you got to help these people, and and so that Christmas break, I just was led to sort of create this thing called the Art of Tough Talks, which was sort of an unpacking of the difference between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, like why they are not the same, and why it is insulting to consider them the same, right? And again, I'm a Black woman in these big white spaces, and I created this work, right? And so, long story short, somebody was watching me, and he saw me create this work, and then he did kind of what y'all did, is he just sort of researched all my other work. And so he saw, the Slingshot Youth Conference that I had created, and he saw the Art of Tough Talks, and he saw Michelle Lang in Stillwater. He just saw like a bevy of my work, and then he saw the Teen Summer Musical. And so he came to me, and he was a representative of the United Methodist Church, and he came to me and said, "Hey, what would you do if you had some funding? Like what innovative ministry would you do if you had some funding?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" And he was like, "I don't know. You tell me." And I was like, "Man, I'm not fooling with you. I'm not." I was like, "I'm not. If you can't tell me what you're talking about, then we ain't talking." Right? And I was like, "Whatever." And literally, I'm not exaggerating. For 2 years, he would come to me and say, "Seriously, I'm watching your work. I'm seeing what you do. I'm seeing the through line, the thread of it, like the authenticity of it. I'm seeing it. Are you sure you don't want to have this conversation?" And I was like, "I'll have the conversation if you just tell me what you want." And he's like, "I don't want to tell you what I want. I want you to tell me what you want." And so he left me alone because the conversation was just stunted. And so he left me alone. And then one summer, I was in Seattle doing the Teen Summer Musical, and he was up the street in Yesler, and he called me. He's like, "Can I come to the theater and just see what you're doing?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yep." And he came to Langston Hughes, saw me doing the Teen Summer Musical, and he said, "I know I left you alone." He's like, "But can we have this conversation? Like, you can bring anybody you want with you to have this conversation." And so we went down to eat at a little place on Lake Washington, and he said, here's what I want you to really think about." And I kind of punted it to the person that I brought to dinner with me, and the dinner just kind of went nowhere. I went home that night and went to bed, and I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night I woke up, and I woke up with what I can only describe as just an angry spirit. And I'm not an angry person. I'm generally not an angry spirited person. Not even a mean or mad person. Like, I get over stuff pretty fast. But I woke up that night just vexed and just like pissed, really. And I was like, what happened today that I missed? Like, who was I supposed to be mad at? Like, who did me dirty today that I didn't catch it? And I couldn't figure it out. And then eventually I fell back asleep. But then when I woke up at about 8, as soon as I woke up, it dawned on me. And again, it was just one of these conversations with God. And he was like, "You've known what you wanted to do for years." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be the executive director of a theater, founder and executive director of a theater." He said, "So why, when I keep sending this man to ask you this question, why do you keep acting like you don't know what he's talking about?" And the spirit of anger, I guess, and I don't know if anybody would agree with this or not, I felt like was almost God speaking to me like, "What is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this?" And I called that guy back, and I said, "Oh, my God, can we have that conversation?" And he said, "Yeah." And so we had the conversation, and he said, "Write it all down." And I wrote it all down. I wrote down the theater, the programs, the people, the timeline, the all of it. I wrote it all down, and I gave it to him. And he took it to whoever he was working with, and they were silent for about 2 or 3 months. And about 3 months later, he came to me the Tuesday before I got married. He called me, and he said, "The council has decided to award you $1 million grant to start that idea."
Wow.
And that's what happened.
Wow.
That's how I Acts on Stage got. That's a long story, and I'm sorry.
No, that's a great story.
That's how it got.
No, you got to break it down.
That's how it got. And so
Context is important.
it is important. It is. And the reason why I share the stuff about, the Art of Tough Talks and the Mike Brown case and the Slingshot Youth Conference and the, speaking, the speaking I used to do and still do, and the music. The reason I say all that is because Acts on Stage didn't just start, and Teen Summer Musical, Acts on Stage didn't just start one day because somebody came and said, "You got any ideas?"
Mm-hmm.
No, it came because somebody actually was watching the longevity of the work already and said, "I've seen the work. Now, what would you do with all of that if funding wasn't a problem?" And so the reason I feel like the whole story is important is because if it inspires anybody, I hope it inspires them to do whatever it is you feel called to do now.
Yep.
And keep doing it.
Yep.
And keep doing it. And keep doing it. And if by chance God wants to lay $1 million or 5 or 10 on you, it will be because that you have roots, not because you were just somebody with a good idea. And so that's how we got here.
You know what's interesting about that too is I think that's such a powerful message because say he had approached you when you hadn't done all the work. Would you have known what to do with that, right? And I think a lot of people sometimes just want so much without actually being able to do what they say they want to do with it. And so that's a powerful message. Like you have to prepare yourself.
Yeah. We always talk about that too, about like you never know who's watching.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Especially
So
nowadays.
it's like, as long as you're just doing the work.
You never know,
You know.
and do your best on the level that you're at.
Right.
What you don't know, people always talk about, I'm trying to go to the next level. You don't know what your next level is. Even if you sort of have a vision or whatever, you don't actually know what is divinely your next level. So do the best you can with whatever you're doing right now. Do the best you can with that now, so that great calls unto you, right? And that's how I feel. Right, like even like Acts on Stage is we're just 5 years old now, so we're still building and we're still babies in this, and every day, I'm thinking about how do we do the best with what we have now.
Yeah.
So that whatever is calling for us, we're ready for that. Like I'm not going to Acts every day thinking, man, this sucks. We should have been 10 times bigger by now.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, no, this is who we are right now.
Yep.
How do we be the best that we can be, right? Like we have staff. I have staff at Acts, and I know I get on their nerves because I'll walk by their office sometimes, and their office ain't tidy. I'm like, clean that up. They're like, why? I was like, cause respect what we have. Respect what we're doing. What if somebody wants to walk in through here right now?
Yeah.
Respect this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like when you send an email out, if he sees this, he'll know I'm talking about him, but I won't say his name. He sends out emails, and sometimes he sends out emails like they're text messages. I'm like, bruh, write that over. Write it again. I was like, what are these abbreviations?
Yeah.
Like I just told you to write the president of blah, 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 right? I just told you to write the executive director of, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need you to, no.
Yeah.
Do it again. Like,
Yeah.
Are you sure? Hell yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do it again. Because this is like, we have to represent what, not only what we are, but what we want to be.
Yeah.
And so,
That's real.
but I really feel like a lot of times people, in their quest to be something greater, they're not actually fully being whoever they are right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's a harsh word, but I feel like it's an insult to your now.
Yeah.
It's an insult to your future and to your now.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, even if it's not where I want to be. You know what I mean? Like everybody wants to be somewhere else, but you got to respect where you're at.
Yep.
Be where your feet are at. You know what I mean? That's real.
It's like mastering each step of the process, I guess.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, how can you want to be there if you didn't master this yet? That's, so that definitely makes a lot of sense to me.
I definitely when a show is over at Acts on Stage, I go back and look at the marketing. Like, what did this look like? Like, how did we do? Like, how do the numbers match the marketing or not? Like, or how do, like, when we did this, what did it yield? And you got to, like, look at that stuff and, like, look at it honestly. Don't be like, well, the people just don't understand. No, we didn't do it right.
Exactly.
The truth of the matter is we didn't do it right.
Yeah.
It's not, the people did not miss us. We didn't do that right.
Yeah.
Let's try it again. Right. But a lot of times people want to overinflate and not actually pay attention.
I'm curious. So for anyone who's listening or watching who would like to support or just be involved with Acts on Stage, from your standpoint, like How have you seen the impact grow over the years, right? Because I think back to the context thing, I think it's important for people to know like why performing art theater is so important, especially the way you guys do it.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Like you said, our Acts on Stage exists to center the voices, talents, works, stories, initiatives of people of color and creators of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like one of the things that is so crucial to put in and to get out of what we do is when people come in, they are seeing themselves unapologetically, right? Like, I feel like when, like, we just closed the show, Sadie's Kitchen.
Amazing show, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Amazing. Yo, I had
Appreciate
a
you
black
coming.
man.
And I think you can attest, like, when you came in, you saw your auntie on stage, you saw your uncle on stage,
Yep.
you saw your cousin on stage, you saw yourself
Yeah.
on stage, and nobody had to explain that to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Nobody had to explain homegirl talking in your window.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
or, talking through the window,
Yep,
like
yep.
that's normal. That is normal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is normal.
Yeah. Like I get that. Yep. I
You
know.
don't have
I know
to
what that-
explain
yep.
it at all. And so I feel like what we're doing is creating space, one, for audiences to be able to go to expressions like ours and enjoy their own story.
Yeah.
Right. And there's beauty, and there's so much beauty. There's so much beauty in that. And at the same time, I know it's not even a feeling. I know that the people who are in our shows are taking like these pilgrimages on behalf of the audience. Like, by the time you see a show, the actors make it look easy.
Yeah.
Right? By the time you see it, you're like, man, he did that. Like, he killed that.
Yeah.
She
Yep.
killed that. Like, that's like, she's so good.
Yep.
You didn't see the 10 weeks, but they had to gut that out. You know what I mean? That they had to be honest with themselves. They had to be honest with each other. They had to be honest about their culture. They had to be honest about their history. They had to be honest about, again, the human experience and how it breaks you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, when people are in these shows, it is ministry because they are putting the story on their back.
That's real.
You know what I'm saying?
That's so
and so
real.
I feel like what we're doing is not only an uplift to the community that sees it, but it's also a deepening to the people who are producing it.
Yeah.
Right?
I
it is
also,
creating something in them.
yeah, like I could speak from my own personal experience. Like I appreciate everything, like any sort of art I consume, but there was like a greater appreciation, I think, when you get it up close that way, right? And even the way you guys did a Q&A session following the show, so like the crowd can interact with the cast members and vice versa. Like I just think we were talking about this too, like about how there's just like this lack of intimacy nowadays when in terms of what we consume entertainment wise or creatively. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to go check it out.
Yeah, people have asked us, like, can we live stream the shows? And we're not anti live stream, but it does feel like it steals some part of that moment.
Yeah.
That you just really got to be here.
You got to be there.
You just got to be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're committed to that.
Yeah, and I know you touched on it, but I guess what's all the behind the scenes work that you guys put into to like produce a show?
It's a lot.
It's a whole lot.
Yeah,
it's a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot. Like we're not doing skits.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Like we've done August Wilson, we've done Dominique Morisseau, we have done original pieces. We've workshopped an entire. I don't know if you guys know who Tia Nashe is. She's a local spoken word artist who's been doing it for like 20 years. We took all of her work and workshopped it into a whole 2-hour show.
Wow.
That doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you got to do the work.
Yeah.
And so having our own space right now allows us to actually cultivate excellence. Where when you're renting out somebody else's space or you're rehearsing in the basement of somebody's house or whatever, you just don't get it the same.
Yeah.
And so having our own place and our own space allows us to do is to be serious about it.
Yeah.
Is to be real about it. And so we take it, really seriously. I'm not the director. I want to shout out my partner, Isaiah Anderson Jr. He's the one that actually directs the shows. But preceding him directing the show is the culture that we're creating at Acts on Stage that that invites people into a process.
Mhm.
That's real. It's a real process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
On that topic, because culture is like really important, and that's something I also noticed. Shout out Mike in the room. We were chopping it up after the show, and that's one thing he mentioned was the environment you guys created for people to come in and be themselves.
Yeah.
Right. I think, like you said, if you're renting out someone else's space or if you're in someone else's building, it may not feel like yours, so you may not feel like you're at home.
Yep.
And I think part of owning your own or just kind of having your own is that you can set the standard on like what's okay here and the type of inclusivity you can create, right?
Yeah. And Michael, he prefers.
Can't call him Mike. My bad.
I mean, you can, but he'll correct you. And that's a thing too, though, that we're trying to create a space where the authenticity of who you are, even down to your name, is respected.
Got you.
Right. Whether you're a black person of faith or an atheist or single or married or whatever, we want you to feel like this is home. And the story that we tell is not just the story that's in the script. It's the story that we're making off script too. And that matters to me. It wasn't enough. People rarely ask, and I think because the name just sounds like it makes sense. But Acts on Stage, the name actually is a reference to the Book of Acts from the Bible.
Gotcha.
And the Book of Acts is where it's commonly known or commonly said that's where you get the first illustration of the church. Right?
Got it.
And so actually our name is the notion of like, what if the church was a theater? Like, what if the Book of Acts was on stage? That's actually what the name is in reference to. And so what that means for me and what that means for us as an organization is, what if our theater functioned like a healthy place of ministry? The only difference is our product is a theater product.
Got it.
Right? And so what that means for me is, we're not perfect. We certainly are not perfect, but we are trying, right, to issue out the same measures of grace and enlightenment and hope and healing and journey, right, that you would get in your traditional church. We're just doing it through this vehicle called theater. We have not to this day done like a religious show, and that's on purpose, right? Our very first show was actually 12 Angry Men, because we wanted to talk about important topics without those prescribed lenses of religion or so like we did 12 Angry Men with an all black male cast.
Got it.
First time anywhere in the world.
Got it.
Because we wanted to talk about race and justice, and what's that other word? Classism, right? We wanted to talk about it without the escape of black versus white.
Got it.
Or right versus wrong. We like, what would it look like if 12 men were locked in a room?
Just objective.
And they had to talk it out.
Yeah.
Like they had to talk about race, but they're all black.
Yeah.
What does it look like when 12 men sit in a room and have to talk about classism and education and corruption, but they're all black, so they don't get the escape, right? And so it's the same kind of it's the same kind of thing that should be, in my opinion, happening at our households of faith. We're just using a different medium to do it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. I love that.
Yeah. So I also want to ask you, like, what advice would you have for someone who's trying to start like a theater? Like, where do they start? Like, how do they get it going?
I mean, I think I already said it. Do what you're doing now. And if somebody came to me, actually it's another person on our staff, he said one day he's working for us, and he goes, I'm gonna start a theater one day. And I was like, what? What? Why? And he just said all the reasons. I just think it's important for people to blah blah blah. And I was like, do you really want to start a theater, or do you just want to do what you just said? And I was like, because there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
This is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like paying the bills, filling out the forms, getting the grants, getting the whatever, like getting the the taxes stuff, the dumpsters and
Yeah.
like all the stuff.
All the
to
stuff
do-
people don't
all
see.
all the stuff it takes to
People don't
run
see.
a
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you want that.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think people confuse an idea with like having to own a physical
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Mhm.
Like sometimes you might just have a good idea that will work really well in somebody else's
Yeah.
idea. You don't have to have like all of us don't have to be out here starting new ideas.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
don't, like, honestly. And I'm not saying that from any perch.
Yeah.
Like honestly, there are people who have ideas. Like we're getting ready to launch a health and wellness program
Mm.
at Axon Stage, like a health and wellness, because we see what we do. We see the intensity of what we do, like especially the musicals. Like that's equal to athletics. Like our kids are physically doing physically demanding stuff from 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
8 weeks, right? That's like athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting ready to start like this health and wellness program. The person that's starting it doesn't need to own a gym.
Mhm.
They don't need to necessarily open a whole nother building
That's
and start
real.
a whole nother thing
That's
when
right.
they just have one lane. So how does your one lane fit in what we're doing?
Yeah.
We one of the folks on our team, he had you guys know Jeff. Jeff
Yeah,
has
shout out
Seattle Urban
Jeff.
Book Exchange.
Yeah.
Shout out Jeff.
And
Yeah,
I'm not
shout out Jeff.
I'm not saying anything that he ain't already
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
But Jeff was gonna throw it away, and I was like, "Why you gonna why you gonna throw it away?" And he was like, "It's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much for one person to do." I was like, "You're right. So let that become a program of Acts on Stage.
Mm.
So then you work here and you can do that program.
Mm.
You don't have to worry about a building. You
Yep.
don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about blah 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 blah. Your program lives here."
Yep.
Right. So I would say to people like who are thinking about their idea, if it's meant to be an
Yeah.
autonomous idea, then go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But partnering and there's nothing wrong with partnering and collaborating
Yeah.
with people that you find alignment with.
Yeah.
That's real.
Nothing wrong with it at all.
That's real.
And I would say find the strength in that. All the things that I named before Acts on Stage that I've named in this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I did those in collaboration with other people.
Yep.
Right? Because they didn't need to exist on their own. They were collaborative works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell people find where collaboration can be good for you, and then if there's a time where it needs to become its own thing, you'll know it. You'll
Yeah.
know it.
And I
I'm
think
glad you touched on that. Yeah.
yeah, because I think a lot of times people just want the opportunity
Yeah.
to do the thing, period. Right? So a lot of times it's not so much about being the sole control or owner of the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, I just want to do this thing. I need some help. I need some help for it to be facilitated.
Yep.
You can help me do that. And it's kind of a value add both ways.
For
Right?
sure. And I feel like especially in the Black community, I've never been anything other than Black, so I can't compare it. But I feel like in the Black community, we hype up a lot. You need to own this, you need to go do this, you need to be great, and you need to,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And we don't add to that all that you have to learn,
Yep.
to sustain that thing.
Mm-hmm.
My team is getting ready to do a strategic planning retreat because we're 5 years old now, and it's not enough to just show up every day and try stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're real close to being past the place where we just show up and let's just see what feels good today.
Yeah.
We're like getting past that. Like
Yeah.
we need to sit for a couple days and like really talk about what works,
Mm-hmm.
what don't work, what's worth repeating, what needs to stop immediately, what matches who we say we are, what doesn't. Like we have to sit now and ask, these grown up questions. And I think a lot of times when people are just sort of following this want for greatness,
Mm-hmm.
they only have enough to get started,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you start something, before you start something, you have to ask yourself, do I have what it takes to keep going after I started? 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of us have what it takes to start, but we don't have whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
And it's not just money.
Yeah.
It's not just money.
Yeah.
But all the other things that it takes to keep building and to keep going.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not sitting from a perch. I'm saying this is the
Yeah.
process that we're in,
Yeah.
that I'm committed to.
But what I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about before the show, where like even with us, with UpNUp, and I've known plenty others, it starts with the
Yeah.
why. It's like
Mhm.
the mission is like what really even got me to do it,
Mhm.
and the mission is what keeps you showing up, so that you can mature and grow into the person who will now get the opportunity by said person who wants to invest in what you have going on. So I love that, man. Now, I did want to ask you this question because as someone who is busy and does a lot, what do you do to kind of balance that out? Or if you want to call it self-care, like what works for you?
Yeah.
And
I'm
how does that?
terrible.
Okay.
I'm not good. And the biggest reason why I'm not good is because I really truly just love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much
Yeah.
that if I were not married, and I've only been married 5 years, I got married literally at the same time. I got the grant 4 days before I got married. So when I got back on my honeymoon, this was part of our life, right?
Yeah.
So if I weren't married, um, um, it would be worse. Like my husband turns it off.
Mm-hmm.
My husband will say, "That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough for today. You know, it'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, um, but I'd be lying if I don't say I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, and if he's sleeping real good, if he's sleeping real good, I'll pull out my phone or try to
Yeah.
get my computer and finish that one little thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not good.
Yeah.
I'm not good, but I will say that it feeds me so much.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That it fuels me and it feeds me so much that sometimes I don't miss the self-care until it's dire.
Mm-hmm.
And then I text somebody else who's on our team today because I told the team I would be there later this afternoon, earlier today, and I text somebody else on the side on the team. I said, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm not coming.
Mm-hmm.
And they wrote me back this long text, and they're like, I'm so glad you're not coming. I don't want to like challenge your work ethic, and I don't want to, I don't want to, put a damper on how you move. But he said, but you work a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like you work a lot, and I really think it's good for you to not come in today.
Yeah.
He's like, matter of fact, I think you should take some more days, and I might. So I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never have a great answer for that question.
Yeah.
I
Well, there's
really
no
do.
right answer for it.
Yeah.
That's the reason. I just ask it because I think it is important for people to just share, what works or just how they're working through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think it always helps. All of us deal with it.
Mhm.
I deal with it too, and I think, but it is. I have learned that like unplugging is just as important sometimes. So you can kind of like look at it from a different perspective too. That's real.
Yeah. So how can someone get involved with Acts on Stage?
Yeah, I mean, just the easiest thing is to go to our website and get on our mailing list and just pay attention to what we're sending out. And it's just axonstage.com and just click the mailing list and get on there. We send out information about casting calls, about opportunities, about programs, about all the things, and of course promotions and marketing about the show. We've had some people call us lately about working at Acts on Stage, and we don't have the capacity for that right now. But again, that's why we're going away to kind of think about ourselves and think like what's the most like what do we need on the team right now. But the best way is just to send us a message on our website and honestly throw something out there. Like sometimes people think if they don't have an idea fully fleshed out yet that they don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. Like, again, that collaboration thing, sometimes it might be like, we might be able to work on your idea while it's still, forming.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out for us to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So, yeah, just contact us and we'll see where the alignment is and, move it forward if it need to be moved forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. What excites you for the future? Like, it could be near, it could be far. Like,
oh man. Well, thinking about how we grow is exciting. Well, okay. You say excitement. I say scare.
Okay.
But there's excitement in the scary.
Isn't the same feeling, all right? Feels the same.
It can.
Yeah.
So like we've definitely outgrown our building. As much as we like the intimate, experience that you just had.
Yeah.
I go to other theaters around the Puget Sound. Village Theater and Taproot and Arts West, and I see their spaces, And I long for Black folks in Seattle to have a space as nice as those. You know what I mean? Like I'm itching.
Yeah.
With fear, quite frankly. For how do we get a Black-owned, Black-led, Black-centered theater? How do we get there? You know, like how do we get there where the patrons' names are on the walls? You know, how do we get there where we're not making it work, but we're not making a renovated church work.
Yeah.
We're actually built a theater.
Yeah.
And it works. You know, I've gone to other cities, Chicago and Atlanta especially, and you go to places that are Black-owned, Black-led, and they are pristine. They are beautiful. They are hubs of Black culture or people of color culture. And I know Seattle has like Langston Hughes, and I have a great respect for Langston Hughes theater in the Central. But that wasn't necessarily started by us for us.
Yeah.
And so for me, I feel like Acts on Stage is looking for the opportunity to meet that moment.
That's real.
And so not being in an itch to get there prematurely.
Yeah.
But feeling like that's where we're trying to go.
I can see that. I see it clear.
We're trying to go. Yeah. When people come to Acts, you know, one of the things that means the most to me is when they say, "Man, we're so proud, you know, of what y'all are doing." That says so much, you know, because you know, Black folks ain't always generous, you know.
they don't give it up,
right? They don't always give that word.
Yeah.
They'll say stuff like, "Okay, well,
I see you,
right? I see your little podcast.
Yeah, I see your little thing.
I see your little theater.
Are you still doing that little thing?
I see your little real estate, you know, business or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't always give it up.
You gotta
right?
translate it like, "Oh, thank you, bro."
Right. You just gotta take it.
I know what you mean.
Right. But people come to Acts in our current state, and they will say, "We're really proud."
Yeah.
You know? And my vision for our future is to meet that.
Yeah.
You know, to meet that with you know, with something that looks like what that feels like.
That's real. And I like it's the conversation now we always have where I'm like, we were just talking about the other day, we were shouting out this other podcast, and I was like, they're telling stories, and I'm like, yo, one platform cannot tell all the stories in the world. The more platforms are, the more stories that get told. And I think what you're talking about as far as like Langston Hughes, it's like we can't just have one theater, right? Like the more the better. So I definitely see that as something that's going to happen. Now, before we get you out of here, first of all, you've been dropping so many gems, but I feel like
I just feel like I've been talking.
It's been effortlessly just flowing. We ask every guest this question. So if you can, what's one word to describe what keeps you on the up and up and why?
Ooh. The transformations. The transformations. I know I'm stealing the in there, but when you see people go, you know, when you see people go from one state of being to another, I can wake up for that every day. I can wake up for it every day, and that's not just, and that's from the audience to the stage to the staff to me. Like there's days where I learned how to fill out a 990. You know, that's like the biggest tax, you know, document thing.
Yeah.
And well, let me correct that. I didn't necessarily learn how to fill it out. I learned how to hire somebody that filled it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the process. Yeah.
And it got done.
Get it done. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We got it done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm different today than I was a year ago.
That's real.
And there are people who've been in our cast that are different today than they were a year ago. It's not all about what I'm about to say, but hear me anyway. We took the cast to dinner after the show on Sunday, and one of the people in the cast told us a couple of maybe a week or so ago that she was an atheist. Like we had been in rehearsal with her for weeks. We praying, you know, before each show and all, you know, just a simple like, you know, prayer before the show, and And one day she came in, she wasn't having a good day, and just in the moment, she was like, "Do I have to, do prayer? I'm an atheist." And we said, "You don't have to, you know." But she ended up doing it anyway. But we gave her the freedom, say you don't have to. But we took the cast to dinner on Sunday after the last show, and I jokingly threw to her to say grace before we ate, and she said, "This is really hard." She goes, "But I feel like I can do it." And she did it, and it was beautiful, and it was hers. It was her words. It was hers, and that's a transformation. I don't know. I don't know what happens beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
But she's a different person today. Even if the way she's different is that she trusts us. She has a community that she trusts.
That's real.
Yeah.
And that she felt free.
Mm.
And that's a transformation. And that's why, show or not, that's why we do it. That's why I do it. That's why I'm waking up. That's why I'm doing it.
That's real. I love that. That might be the first time we got transformation as a word. I think so.
Yeah.
That's real. Well, Michelle, first off, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Spending some time with us.
It's an honor.
Yeah, and man, just thank you for doing the work you're doing. And we wish you much success moving forward. You got support with us here at the UpNUp always.
Always.
And with that being said, I think it's safe to say Michelle Lang-Raymond and Acts on Stage are officially members of the UpNUp. Can we get a round of applause?
Yeah.
Give it up.
Thank y'all. I'm glad to be here.
To continue supporting the podcast and the entire UpNUp movement, be sure to rate, review, like, and subscribe.
As well as follow us at _ the UpNUp on all social media platforms to stay connected with everything the UpNUp has coming your way.
Thanks for listening, and until the next one,
Keep it on the UpNUp.